Welcome to The Spotlight, the podcast where veterans and military spouses connect and share how their military experience has transformed their lives and their businesses. Here's your host, Bob Louthen.
Hey, this is your host, Bob Louthen, founder of the VeteranCrowd Network, the network that brings veterans and veteran-led businesses together with each other and the resources they need to prosper. And you are tuning into The Spotlight. Welcome, everyone. This is Bob Louthen. Thanks for joining The Spotlight. I'm very pleased to have as my guest today, Alisa Johnson. She is a graduate at the University of San Diego, a Marine Corps pilot. We're going to talk a lot about that, and the founder of a nonprofit called Dogs on Deployment. Alisa, thanks for joining us from San Diego today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Excited to talk to your VeteranCrowd network.
Thanks so much for doing this. I usually start with my guests and I look at somebody. I mean, you have got an unusual career path. There are not a lot of female aviators in the United States Marine Corps. I would love to hear about how all that happened.
Yeah, I was 17 years old. I was in the JROTC unit for the Marine Corps in high school, and I decided that I needed to do something important with my life, and I wanted to enlist. My mom was adamantly against that. So the long story short is I ended up applying for the ROTC scholarship. I was awarded that to go to the University of San Diego as a Marine Corps option. And the entire time, I was pushing towards like maybe being a combat engineer. My favorite movie growing up was like Aliens and like G.I. Jane. So I really was inspired by that kind of powerful woman. And unfortunately, those jobs just weren't, in line with the times of what I wanted to do. So I decided to pursue the aviation route. Applied for the pilot contract straight out of ROTC and was awarded it. So then when I was going through flight school, I really was interested in being on a crew served weapon or crew served aircraft. My husband was a helicopter pilot, and knowing the dangers in life of a helicopter pilot, there was no way that I wanted to fly helicopters. So really the only option for me was C-130s. I was very fortunate that I was, selected as a C-130 pilot for my graduating flight school class. And it was the best career decision. And
Did you go to Pensacola?
I went to Pensacola for IFS and API. And then I went to Corpus Christi, Texas for primary school and for advanced training on the T-34 and the King Air.
Now, was your husband in Milton in Florida? Or was that
he was?
Okay.
Yeah, but he's actually a few years my senior. So while I was still in college, he was in flight school. And while I was in flight school, he was on his fleet tour. So he was always a couple years ahead of me in our career progression, which made it very difficult in the beginning, being separated for our first decade together. We were separated for 7 years. And that's really where Dogs on Deployment was born, honestly. It was in that separation. So
interesting. So how does talk a little bit about being a pilot on the C-130? And again, I fully understand the crew type aircraft versus the single seat type of orientation. But talk a little bit about that and aviation in the Marine Corps. One of the things I find is particularly interesting, that's different about the Marine Corps, is that they make all of the pilots go to infantry school to Quantico.
Right. Yeah. Every Marine is required, or at least every Marine officer is required to go to the basic school, which is a 6 months infantry centric school in Quantico, Virginia, as well as officer candidate school. And that entire training process is all about teaching you how to be a basic rifleman. And, you're in the field, you're dirty, you're wet, you're cold, or you're hot, depending on what time of year you're there. I unfortunately was there in the fall. So I had, rainy days and snowy nights. It was a great time. They teach you the basic fundamentals of how to be a Marine Corps leader and that basic rifleman. So the idea is that, every Marine is able to step up into a leadership position, no matter where you're at or what the situation might dictate.
I think that's unique to the Marine Corps, though, because it sort of creates credibility between the aviators and the guys on the ground, right?
Well, I think that there's still a little bit of a rivalry between the pilot contracts and the ground contracts at the basic school, but that's just a bit of friendliness between the ground
I
and the
like
air.
the way the Marine Corps does it, though. I just really think that's a unique thing in and of itself, and very good.
Yes, it humbles everybody and it puts everybody at the same page and gives everybody a common experience to have a baseline for. So it brings the Marine Corps Officer Corps together.
So you were in the KC 130J,
Super
right? Which
Hercules.
is all right. So, and that's a refueling aircraft
Correct.
primarily, right? Okay. And I have to admit, when we talked before, I didn't realize that the Marine Corps had that type of aircraft. You always
Yeah.
see the helicopters and the F-18s and the Harriers, but you never really hear about the C-130 fleet.
Fat Albert from the Blue Angels. That's a Marine Corps C-130.
There you go. Well, I'm learning. I'm learning. I'm learning about the brown shoe Navy and Marine aviation, as we speak. So, you get out of flight school. Let's go back and talk about dogs on deployment, because it did actually happen and started while you were on active duty.
Correct. Yeah. I had just commissioned in the Marine Corps. I had my orders to go to the basic school for 6 months. I was going to be living in the barracks. My husband was deploying at the same time. And we didn't have anyone to care for our dog, JD. And it was that kind of stressful situation of what we were going to do with him while we both had our military commitments that kind of inspired us to found the organization.
What happens most of the time, I imagine, is that a family member adopts the dog while somebody's on deployment, right?
Yeah, if you're lucky. I mean, that's what happened to us. A distant relative stepped up to the plate and they were, kind enough to allow our dog to stay with them for the 6 months. But a lot of times people don't have a family member or a friend to rely on. And unfortunately, a dog or a cat could end up in an animal shelter. And that's what our organization tries to prevent.
So, when you were first starting this out, how did you define the size and the scope of the problem?
I had no size or scope. I was like, I need to help everyone everywhere.
Okay.
And, I think it was that kind of initial push to be a national organization. I never tried to keep it regional or anything. That allowed us to grow so exponentially quickly over the years, and gain a lot of steam and headway to kind of pave the path for what the organization is today. So there was no limitation on what I wanted to accomplish with the organization. I just knew that I needed to create something that would help every service member that needed our help as best that we could.
When you started this, I mean, how big is it now? How many volunteers are there? How
Yeah.
many animals have you helped? I don't know how you measured the size of the business at this point, but
Yeah, in our total network, so from the day we founded to currently, we have about 70,000 people that have registered at one point in time or another as a DoD boarders is what we call them, or our foster homes, which is pretty incredible. At any given time, we have about 3,000 to 4,000 active DoD boarders, and these are the people that are logging in and chatting with people and actively opening up their homes to military members. And then in terms of the military members that we've helped about 2,500 military pets find placement with our DoD boarders. We have a 91% success rate for placement. So from the military members that get approved for our network, about 91% of them end up finding a DoD boarder through our network. If they don't find a DoD boarder, that 9%, it's usually that they ended up having a deployment that was canceled, or a family member takes their pet, or something else. But our goal is to make sure that no pet ever gets surrendered needlessly because of a military commitment.
And now a word about a VeteranCrowd spotlight sponsor. Cardomax is owned and operated by former Navy SEAL Sean Matson. Cardomax has designed just the right supplements for you and is offering VeteranCrowd an exclusive offer. Buy one, get one free on your first order. Go to cardomax.com and use promo code VeteranCrowd. That's cardomax.com, helping you achieve your max. Now back to your host, Bob Loudon.
So we're talking with Alisa Johnson. She's the founder and CEO of Dogs on Deployment. What does it mean, Alisa, when a dog's actually surrendered? Let's go down that path for a second. This is sort of the bad outcome of a deployment, right?
Right. Right. Yeah. It means that they have to give their animal up to a shelter or a rescue and putting that pet at risk. It's the relinquishment of their right to own that animal.
How often does that happen?
We don't have exact statistics, but we do know that at a local animal shelter here in San Diego, that in 2018, they had about 1% of their total intakes was due to military deployments. So it's gone down because before that it was higher. But what I found interesting when I first started this organization is that I was calling animal shelters in highly impacted military towns. And I asked them, hey, like, what's your situation with military families in your local communities? And what I found that there was a lot of animal shelters that were in military towns that refused to adopt to military members because the fear of relinquishment was so high. So we knew that there was a need to create something that would prevent this from happening.
Have you sort of made a beachhead in communities outside of San Diego? Where else in the country?
Yeah, we have a really huge following in Virginia Beach area, Hampton Roads. We have a big following in the Pensacola area, which is obviously, part of my original career start. We have a good following up in this Joint Base Lewis McChord in Washington, San Antonio, Texas. So we really are kind of trying to target major areas where there are military bases that have a high deployability rate. Phoenix, Arizona. So everywhere there's a military member that needs help, we aim to try to find foster homes for.
So here's an off the wall Pensacola question. If you went back to Pensacola, where would you go to eat? I'm wondering what your favorite restaurant was.
Oh, it's McGuire's, hands down. Those potato skins and other things.
Okay.
In fact, when my husband proposed to me, we had dinner at McGuire's, and we put our names and our date on a dollar bill and stapled it to the wall there.
There you go. We'll have to go look for that. We'll see that. And if you haven't been to Floribama, that's a bucket list bar, folks.
Yeah, I can't tell those stories though on air.
Yeah, I tell you, I'm ready to go back. I'm ready to go back to Floribama. Hey, let's go back for a second. I want to talk about some stories about your entrepreneurial journey because, no entrepreneurial trip is an easy road. And you actually had a situation one time where here you are, the CEO of a nonprofit that takes care of dogs, and you were told that you were not fit to be a dog owner and adopt a dog. Is that right? Is that true?
Yeah. It was when I was trying to adopt my second dog. The first rescues I had contacted, Dogs in Employment at that time was about 2 years old. And I was trying to adopt a dog and I got denied my application. And I was like, are you serious? And my application was denied because I was in the military. And I was like, I started an organization to help military members with pets. I found it very awful. It felt really bad. Here I am with 100 pictures of me and my dog JD traveling the world. And, he's the most spoiled dog you'll ever meet. And they wouldn't allow me to adopt one of their dogs. So luckily I did find a rescue that did adopt to me. And now I have 2 great Australian Shepherd pups.
But that was because you were a member of the military and they felt like that person would abandon the dog at some point.
It is specifically because both my husband and I were in the military.
That's interesting. So you're kind of discriminated against because you're serving.
Yes, in a sense, yes.
All right. Well, let's go back, let's talk about the entrepreneurial journey. The first question, and this is one I ask a lot. Do you think that the experiences that you gained, the disciplines you gained in the crucible of the military helped you be a better business person?
Oh, absolutely. It just changes the way that you think about problem solving, teamwork, about managing people. expectations. And in a way, it really has humbled me to going into the business environment, in dogs and employment and outside of it, where I'm able to kind of rely back on some really challenging times in my life and be able to use those experiences to help mold or shape my decisions of how I'm going to, implement something or how I'm going to approach a certain person. So yes, absolutely. The training has translated to business world.
There were some times in the beginning that maybe you wanted to throw in the towel on the business because you were trying to be a marine aviator, which is arguably a pretty full-time job,
Yes, it
and
is.
run a nonprofit, which blossomed into what is now your full-time career.
Yeah. There were a lot of times. I had some people that were really supportive of, the efforts that I was putting in. And I had other people that saw them as a waste of time and not in line with the Marine Corps values. But, I always went back to what was important to me as a Marine Corps officer. And what I learned at OCS and what I learned at the basic school was, always putting people first and being a leader in that sense. And so when I knew that there were military members out there that couldn't focus on their mission at hand or on their deployment, it didn't matter if they were my Marines or somebody else's Marines or someone in the Army or in the Air Force and Navy or the Coast Guard for that matter. What mattered was that somebody out there couldn't focus on the national security mission at hand. And for me, it was solving that problem. And perhaps it's a very niche market, it's just a few thousand pets, but that's a few thousand people that, our organization specifically helped. And in addition to the foster network, we also provide financial assistance, which is really an area that I feel extremely strongly about. As we started to fundraise, with our organization, I like to say I run a pretty lean organization. So I wanted to find a way to really make an impact on, somebody's $25 donation. How do I make that stretch? And how do I make that have the most impact on military families? And that's when we started what we call the Rich Setzer Memorial Grant Fund. And this is a fund that we have that provides financial assistance to military members, either for emergency pet care or vet care. So a dog gets hit by a car or has to have a surgery and a military member can't afford it, or a military family has to move overseas and they can't afford to bring their pet. Specifically in the last year, what used to cost $2,000 maybe to go from California to Japan will now cost $4,000 to go from California to Japan. So we use a great deal of our funding to give back directly to military families. And that was always something I'm the one that's personally is calling, the veterinarian clinics or the travel companies. And I'm saying, here's my credit card, put $1,000 on this person's account. And knowing that I'm giving that family, some significant help and financial reprieve was always something that was really important to me. And so no matter what the naysayers might have been, I always knew that our organization was doing good in the world. And, if I wasn't going to do it, then it wasn't going to exist. So I kind of pushed through any of those challenges. And I tried to manage my time between being a full-time aviator, between being a maintenance officer, between being a Marine, between being a nonprofit owner, and then eventually even being a mother, which is really where the challenge in the Marine Corps started.
The trifecta going.
Yeah. But I appreciated all the people that were supportive of the organization because, it truly has made a difference in people's lives.
When somebody is deployed outside the continental United States, are there quarantines for animals? Is that part of the expense of?
Depending on where they're going, yes, every country has its own different requirements. Hawaii, Australia, Japan, Guam all have some sort of quarantine requirements. But we recommend checking with the that country's pet website. They all have some sort of website that will list what the requirements are, or you can contact a pet shipper and ask.
Okay, I hadn't even thought about the veterinary expenses and so forth, but having pets of my own, I do know from time to time It's going to cost what?
Yeah, yeah, pets are not cheap.
Yeah, they really are not inexpensive. Um, Question for you. Now these will be, a little bit off the wall. Uh, what was your call sign? I'm curious.
My call sign was Lamina.
Lamina?
Uh-huh.
I don't
Yeah.
even know how to spell that. And
Oh,
there's a story behind that. Is that something we can share, or is that forever uh, classified information?
so I always ask people, it's a quiz. Option A is Lamina is animal spelt backwards. Option B is an acronym for look at me, I need attention. And option C is the landmine in Spanish. So I'll just leave it at that.
Okay, animal backwards. Look at me, I need attention, and landmine. Okay. Maybe all three, maybe a little bit of all three. Oh,
It's a
okay.
mystery.
That's very interesting. Um, are there any stories that, of people that you've helped that sort of stick in your mind when you're, thinking about this journey you've taken over what now? It's been 10, 11 years?
10 years, 10
10
years. Yeah.
years?
Yeah, gosh, there's endless stories. Every time I see one of our reunion videos, like it always kind of gets me choked up. Like, our
The
organization did
dog is
that,
just going nuts and the owner's so
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. I got
It's
one
almost as good
yesterday
as
from
them seeing their kids, right?
yeah, sometimes. Yeah, it really is a special moment to be able to capture and share. But you know, um, I don't know. There was one family that I helped one time that really stuck with me, and I think maybe it is because I'm a parent myself, and I had just had my daughter when this grant came across. We generally only help E6 and below when it comes to our financial assistance programs.
Mhm.
Just trying to maximize the amount or the benefit that we can offer people for our limited funding. But we had an officer, same rank as me, a captain that had just PCS to Japan, and he had taken 2 Great Danes with him. And I want to say his total travel bill was somewhere around $10,000. And his
Just for the
wife was
dogs.
pregnant, and when they
Ugh,
just for the 2 dogs, yeah.
ugh.
And his wife was pregnant, and when they got there to Japan, they were only been there for a month or two, and their child ended up having some complications at birth, and they immediately needed to PCS back to the States so that the baby could get care. And that meant that they had to ship their dogs back and pay another $10,000 out of pocket. And he reached out and he's like, look, I know I'm not eligible, but this is our situation. Like, if there's anything you can do, that would be appreciated. And we fundraised for it, and we were able to cover a majority of the cost to send the dogs back. And they were so thankful, and I just hope that family and that baby are healthy and are happy and together, which is the most important part. So that particular story, it made me realize how real the support is that we give people.
So what's coming up for you in the next 12 months? What's in the front of you?
Gosh, next 12 months is kind of crazy. I did just take on another project. Speaking of the entrepreneurial spirit, when I got out of the Marine Corps, I had planned on going into the airlines,
Mhm.
which that might still be on the docket at some point in time as things normalize. But when I took the airline position, it was pretty much canceled right as COVID was running around right before
Right.
I was supposed to start training. And I realized over the past year, like a huge disconnect in my life from aviation. And, I was doing a little bit of civilian flying and whatnot. But then there was a day that my husband and I both got this kind of referral to this company. And this company is called HTX Labs. And what they're doing is creating virtual reality training for aircraft platforms such as the T6, which is flown by the Air Force and the Navy. And they're creating basically these virtual reality simulators for students to go in and complete lessons created by their instructors on their emergency procedures, their normal procedures, their checklists, and their flows. And we're also going to be working on the C-130 for crew chiefs, and to learn how to, do their systems in the C-130. So when we heard about this company and what their mission was to create this really effective training for the aviation community, both my husband and I had been really impacted by, unfortunately, a lot of aviation mishaps, and a lot of, people that we knew, or, friends of friends that we knew, that unfortunately went out to fly one day and didn't come back. And so for us to be able to be a part of a solution to make pilots more effective at their training, or to make crew masters or crew chiefs more effective at their maintenance, was a really kind of important piece of what we wanted to be reconnected with the aviation community. Because for us, we can provide a solution to help, make pilots more effective in their training. And for me, that would have been so helpful to be able to sit in a virtual reality headset and go through my procedures and stuff, as opposed to putting a picture of my cockpit on the wall and trying to chair fly from that. So that's on the next 12 months is we've been working with HTX Labs on Air Force and Navy contracts, and building out these T6 and C-130 platforms. With Dogs in Deployment, it's our 10-year anniversary. We just renewed a second year of funding with our title sponsor, Tractor Supply. So we'll be doing a real big fundraiser here in June for our 10-year.
COVID has made fundraising more of a challenge, hasn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah. It was a challenging year last year, for sure. We were really fortunate that, our donors, continued to support us to the best of their abilities. And we, our promise back to our donors was we were going to run the organization to the best of our abilities to help the most amount of people that we could. So we're hoping to, have a strong year this year, so that we can, get our programs up and running. We had a huge influx of military families coming to us for grant assistance requests, because of PCSing has opened back up more fully. And so, my backlog right now has about 40 applicants of military families requesting anywhere from $2,000 to $4,000 each to ship their pets somewhere. And so, without sponsorships or funding, like from, companies like
pretty
yeah, it adds up. It adds up a lot. So, that's our big challenge this year is kind of recovering and growing from that too. But we are lucky. We have a great, supporter base. So they're always very supportive of specific pets that we're fundraising for. But yeah, that's the big dockets for me. I got my kids are getting bigger. I got my 4.5-year-old, my 2.5-year-old. We're finally going to Disneyland again. We got all of our vaccines and everything in our household. So just trying to get a little bit back to normal, and find happiness and normalcy again.
That's right. How does everybody get in touch with you? How does everybody follow Dogs on Deployment?
So we're online, obviously, dogsondeployment.org. You can look us up, Facebook, Dogs on Deployment, or Instagram, on Twitter as well. If you need any help, go to our website. You can either sign up for, a pet owner account, or to be a foster home or DoD borders. And you can always contact us with any questions.
We'll put these links and social media handles on the show notes for this episode. We've been talking with Alisa Johnson, the founder and CEO of Dogs on Deployment, a former Marine Corps aviator. So proud of you. Just impressed of what you've done. I love, I just, I don't know. I'm envious. You said something in the beginning, you thought about being a combat engineer, which,
Right.
couldn't be a combat engineer like me. Going into aviation was pretty good. That's a pretty good choice. So
yeah, I think it worked out pretty well.
I think it worked out pretty well for you. Good for you.
I took my 4.5 daughter the other day flying in a Cessna for the first time, and the first 15 minutes of it was absolutely incredible. And then the last 45 minutes of it, she was completely bored. So I got to work on her a little bit, but
she'll get the bug. She'll get the bug. Well, thanks so much. You've been listening to the Spotlight on the Veteran Crowd Network. Our guest has been Alisa Johnson with Dogs on Deployment. I am going to give a big Army Bravo Zulu shout out to you, Alisa. Thank you for joining the program. And that's a wrap.
Thank you for listening to Spotlight by VeteranCrowd. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. For more information and uploads, please visit our website at veterancrowdnetwork.com. We'll see you next time.